Airline security beats black twins until they bleed, and moments later their dad cancels the airline's license. But what the TSA officer screamed at two children before slamming their faces into the floor will make you question whether anything has changed since Jim Crow. You little thugs are trying to smuggle weapons onto my aircraft? You think we're stupid? TSA Officer Derek Paulson stands over 13-year-old Caleb and 11-year-old Zuri Thornwell in the Miami International Airport security screening area, his voice loud enough for everyone in the terminal to hear. Kids like you are exactly what terrorists use as mules, and I'm not letting you through to commit another 9/11. The words hit Caleb and Zuri like physical blows, their hands shaking as they try to understand how a multi-tool keychain their grandfather gave them has turned them into suspected terrorists. Zuri's tears already flowing, her stuffed elephant that got dumped from her backpack lying on the dirty floor beside scattered snacks and Caleb's debate notes. The small screening room feels like it's closing in, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the smell of fear and cleaning chemicals mixing together. Here's what nobody wants to admit in 2025, racism didn't die with the Civil Rights Act. It didn't disappear with body cameras and diversity training. It evolved and put on a uniform and learned to hide behind security protocols and safety regulations. And in some ways that makes it worse than the open hatred of the 1960s, because now when it happens people can film it on their phones but they won't intervene. They'll watch children suffer but choose their flight schedules over courage. They'll record injustice but delete the evidence when authorities ask for it. Caleb isn't surprised by Derek's accusation. He's shocked, yes, because you're never quite ready for an adult to call you a terrorist to your face when you're just trying to fly to a leadership summit. But surprised? Not at all. This is his reality as a black boy in America, the security guard who follows him through stores, the teacher who assumes his good grades must be cheating, the neighbors who call police when he's playing basketball in his own driveway. Each time the same script, the same assumption of criminality, the same dehumanization wrapped in concern for public safety. Sir, that's just a keychain, Caleb tries to explain, his voice shaking but polite like his parents taught him. My grandfather gave it to us, he's a retired Marine, it's not a weapon, it's a gift. Don't lie to me, boy. Derek's finger jabs toward Caleb's face. Attempting to bring weapons through security is a federal crime and you're going to learn that actions have consequences. We have documentation. Zuri holds up their unaccompanied minor papers with trembling hands. We're going to the National Youth Leadership Summit in Washington. We're invited guests. Here's our invitation letter. Linda Mosley, Derek's partner, snatches the papers and barely glances at them. Fake credentials. We see this all the time. Kids being used to smuggle terrorist equipment because we're supposed to trust children. Around them other passengers move through security normally. A white family with actual pocket knives in their luggage gets a polite warning and confiscation. No interrogation, no accusation. Just sorry sir, but we'll need to take this. Have a nice flight. An elderly white woman with scissors in her purse. Oh, those must have slipped in by accident, ma'am. Just be more careful next time. But Caleb and Zuri stand in a separate screening room for 35 minutes being asked who gave you the weapon and what were you planning to do with it and who are you working with? Questions that make no sense for a keychain that couldn't hurt anyone, questions designed to make them confess to crimes they haven't committed. Please, can we call our parents? Caleb's voice cracks. Our dad is expecting us to land in 2 hours, our mom is waiting at the summit, they're going to be worried. You don't get phone calls until we verify you're not a threat. Derek crosses his arms over his chest. Right now you're terror suspects and you'll be treated as such until proven otherwise. Zuri sobs harder, her acceptance speech about justice and dignity in America folded in her pocket, the irony of being denied both at this very moment not lost on her 13-year-old understanding. We're not terrorists, we're just kids trying to go to a leadership program. Sure you are, Linda sneers. And I'm the Queen of England. The small room has no windows, just walls closing in and two TSA officers who've decided these children are guilty before any evidence exists. Other TSA agents walk past the door, glance in, see two black children crying, and keep walking. Nobody questions why a screening is taking this long. Nobody asks if everything is okay. Everybody chooses their shift schedule over intervention. I want to speak to a supervisor, Caleb finally says with the firmness his father taught him. You're violating our rights and I want someone in charge to know what's happening here. Derek's face hardens into something dangerous. You're being non-compliant, that's grounds for arrest. He grabs his radio, keys the mic. I need backup at screening room 3. 2 juveniles resisting security protocols, situation potentially hostile. If you believe no child should ever be called a terrorist for carrying a keychain, keep watching. If you think racial profiling at airports is something we solved years ago, you need to see what happens when backup arrives. And if you've ever been treated like a criminal because of your skin color, drop a comment below and tell us your story. We're reading every single one. Tell us where you're watching from and what time it is right now. This story doesn't end the way you think. Hit that like button if you stand against racism and subscribe to this channel because we're exposing the incidents that security doesn't want you to see. 3 additional TSA officers appear at the door and Caleb reaches for his phone to call his father, and that's when Derek Paulson makes the decision that will end his career and change aviation security forever. But to understand how 2 children ended up bleeding on an airport floor, you need to know who Caleb and Zuri Thornwell really are. And more importantly, you need to understand why this trip to Washington, D.C. means everything to them. Caleb Thornwell is 13 years old, 8th grade at Miami Prep Academy, captain of the debate team, straight a student who wants to be a civil rights attorney like Thurgood Marshall. He's responsible beyond his years, the kind of kid who reminds his little sister to pack extra socks and makes sure they both eat breakfast before big days. He plays saxophone in the school jazz band and volunteers teaching younger kids to read at the community center. Zuri is 11, 6th grade. Obsessed with marine biology and poetry, she writes verses about ocean conservation and dreams of studying at Howard University like her mother did. She's funny and brave and carries her stuffed elephant everywhere even though she's too old for it because that elephant was a gift from their grandmother who died last year. Their father is Dr. Marcus Thornwell, Director of the Federal Aviation Administration, appointed by the President just 6 months ago after a distinguished career in aviation safety and regulation. He's the first black person to hold the position, a fact that makes him proud and cautious, knowing that every decision he makes will be scrutinized differently than his predecessors. Their mother is Professor Simone Thornwell. She teaches constitutional law at Georgetown University, specializes in civil rights litigation, published 2 books on systemic racism in American institutions. Both parents work impossible hours trying to make systems more just, trying to create a world where their children won't face the discrimination they've spent careers fighting. This trip to the National Youth Leadership Summit is the culmination of months of work. Caleb and Zuri were selected from over 10,000 applicants nationwide, chosen for their essays on leadership and social justice, invited to spend a week in Washington learning from lawmakers and activists and judges. Zuri is giving the opening speech tomorrow morning, her acceptance speech titled Justice and Dignity in America that she's been writing and rewriting for weeks, practicing in front of mirrors and family members until every word feels right. That morning their mother made them pancakes shaped like the Capitol building, took photos of them in their travel outfits looking so grown up and nervous. Their father drove them to Miami International himself even though he had meetings all morning, walked them all the way to security even though parents aren't supposed to go past that point. He showed his FAA credentials and the agent let him accompany his children to the checkpoint. He knelt down before they went through, looked both of them in the eyes. You two are representing our family this week. You're going to meet important people and learn important things, but more than that you're proving that black excellence isn't an exception, it's the standard. Be proud of who you are, stand tall, speak clearly, and remember that you belong in every room you enter. Caleb hugged him tight. We'll make you proud, Dad. You already do, Dr. Thornwell's voice caught slightly. Now go show Washington what Thornwell leadership looks like. He watched them walk toward the security line, Caleb holding Zuri's hand, both of them with backpacks and rolling carry-ons, both of them looking back one more time to wave. He waved back, smiled, had no idea that in 40 minutes his children would be bleeding on the floor while TSA officers pinned them down like criminals. Check-in had gone perfectly. The airline agent smiled at their unaccompanied minor documentation, processed their tickets efficiently, commented on how responsible they seemed for their ages. The gate area was normal. They sat playing games on Caleb's tablet while Zuri practiced her speech one more time, other passengers milling around, families with young children, business travelers on phones, college students with oversized backpacks. Their flight to Washington was scheduled to depart at 2:15 p.m. They'd land at 5:30 p.m. Their mother would pick them up at Reagan National, take them to their hotel near the summit venue. They'd have dinner and rest before tomorrow's big day. Everything planned perfectly, everything going smoothly, until they reached the TSA security checkpoint. That's where Derek Paulson sees them. Two black children with expensive-looking backpacks and confident postures. Kids who clearly come from families with resources. Kids who don't match his mental image of what black children should look like. He flags them immediately for additional screening, his professional mask already slipping to reveal the prejudice underneath. Random selection, he tells his partner Linda Mosley, but there's nothing random about it. They both know he's selected them because of their skin color and because the system gives him that power and rarely questions how he uses it. Caleb and Zuri stand in the screening area. Caleb's backpack goes through the scanner. The laptop inside triggers an alert like laptops always do. Standard procedure is to swab it for explosives and send them through, but Derek sees an opportunity. He orders them to a separate screening room, his voice already harsh and suspicious, already treating them like criminals instead of children. Linda dumps Caleb's entire backpack on the metal table, everything spilling out, debate notes scattering, Zuri's stuffed elephant falling to the floor, their carefully packed snacks and chargers and headphones now jumbled and disrespected. She's rough with their belongings, tossing items, checking pockets with aggressive thoroughness that goes beyond security protocols into something personal. That's when Derek finds the multi-tool keychain, a small thing no bigger than a house key. Their grandfather gave it to them last month. He's a retired Marine who served 3 tours and carries one himself, told them a Thornwell is always prepared, taught them how each tiny tool works even though they'd probably never need to use them. Derek holds it up like he's discovered a bomb. This is a weapon, his voice triumphant. You're trying to smuggle a weapon onto an aircraft? That's a federal crime. And that's when Caleb and Zuri's normal trip to a leadership summit becomes a nightmare that will change aviation security policy forever. Derek Paulson orders the twins' bags opened manually, his voice carrying that edge of authority people use when they've already decided someone is guilty and now they're just gathering evidence. Linda Mosley dumps Caleb's backpack contents violently onto the metal table. The laptop crashes down with a sound that makes Caleb wince, his debate notes scatter across the surface. Pens rolling onto the floor, personal items spilling everywhere like his privacy is something they have the right to violate. She does the same to Zuri's bag. Rougher now, more aggressive, Zuri's stuffed elephant falls to the floor landing in a puddle of something sticky. Zuri reaches for it instinctively because that elephant has been with her through everything, through their grandmother's death and their first day of middle school and every hard moment. Linda slaps her hand away hard enough to sting. Don't touch anything until we clear it. You don't get to touch your belongings until we say so. Zuri pulls back like she's been burned, tears forming in her eyes not from the slap but from the cruelty, from the way this woman is treating a stuffed animal like it might be hiding explosives. Derek examines their items with exaggerated suspicion, holding up Caleb's calculator like it's a bomb component, flipping through Zuri's poetry notebook like the verses about ocean conservation might contain coded terrorist messages. He's performing now, showing his partner and anyone watching that he's thorough, that he takes security seriously, that no detail escapes his veteran eye. Then he finds it, the multi-tool keychain clipped to the inside pocket of Caleb's backpack, 2 inches long with a tiny blade and screwdriver and bottle opener, TSA-compliant under the 2.5-inch limit, a gift from their grandfather who's carried one through 3 combat tours and 30 years since. Derek holds it up triumphantly like he's discovered a cache of weapons. Well, look what we have here, a weapon. Caleb's stomach drops but he keeps his voice calm, respectful, the way his father taught him to speak to authority even when authority is wrong. Sir, that's just a keychain, it's under the size limit, my grandfather gave it to me for my birthday, he's a retired Marine colonel. Don't lie to me, boy, Derek's voice gets harder, the word boy landing with intentional weight. This is a prohibited item, you're attempting to smuggle a weapon onto an aircraft, that's a federal crime. Linda grabs her radio, speaks into it with urgency that feels manufactured. We have a weapons violation at checkpoint 3. Juveniles attempting to board with concealed blade, needs supervisor notification. Caleb tries again, still calm, still respectful even though his heart is racing. So the TSA website says tools under 2.5 inches are allowed. That keychain is exactly 2 inches. I can show you the regulation if you have a computer. Derek steps closer, using his height to intimidate, his face too close to Caleb's. Are you telling me how to do my job? You think you know TSA regulations better than a 19-year veteran? You think because you can read a website you understand security protocols? Zuri is crying harder now, her voice small and breaking. We're not doing anything wrong, we're just going to a leadership program, we're good kids, we study hard, we never get in trouble. Linda sneers, the expression twisting her face into something ugly. Sure you are, and I'm the Queen of England. What leadership program lets kids carry weapons? Caleb pulls out their invitation letters from the National Youth Leadership Summit, official letterhead, signatures from senators and education officials, detailed itinerary for the week including Zuri's scheduled speech tomorrow morning. He hands them to Derek with shaking hands, hoping documentation will fix this, hoping official letters will make these adults see them as students instead of threats. Derek barely glances at the letters, dismisses them with a wave. Fake. We've seen forged credentials before. You can print anything on a computer these days. Kids use fake documents all the time to cover up smuggling operations. But these aren't fake. Caleb's voice rises slightly with frustration. You can call the summit. You can verify our registration. Our parents paid $2,000 for us to attend. We were selected from over 10,000 applicants. That's a very elaborate story. Derek sets the letters down without reading them. Which makes me think you've been coached. Someone taught you exactly what to say when you got caught. That's how these operations work. They use sympathetic-looking kids because people don't want to believe children can be criminals. We're not criminals. Zuri's voice cracks completely. We're honor students. We volunteer at our church. We've never been in trouble. Why won't you believe us? Linda crosses her arms, looks down at Zuri with something like disgust. Because kids like you lie, and then you cry, and then you expect us to feel sorry for you and let you through, but we're not falling for it. The words kids like you hang in the air heavy with implication, with the racism that's been underneath this entire interaction finally surfacing just enough to be undeniable. Other passengers moving through security nearby pretend not to notice. A white teenager with an actual pocket knife 3 inches long gets it confiscated with polite apologies. Sorry sir, but we'll have to take this. You can claim it when you return. Have a safe flight. No interrogation, no accusations, no detained in separate rooms. Just a minor inconvenience and a friendly smile. Derek makes a decision, the kind of decision that feels powerful in the moment but will destroy everything he's built over 19 years. We need to question you about intent and associations. You're coming with us to a screening room where we can talk privately without disrupting other passengers. Can we call our parents first? Caleb asks, his voice still trying to stay calm even though panic is rising in his chest. We're minors, we have rights to contact our guardians. Derek grabs Caleb's arm roughly, fingers digging into the 13-year-old's bicep hard enough to hurt. You don't get phone calls until we verify you're not a threat. Now move, both of you, and don't make this harder than it needs to be. He escorts them toward a small windowless room at the edge of the security area, Linda following behind with their bags, other TSA agents watching but not questioning why 2 children are being detained, not asking if this seems proportionate to a 2-inch keychain, not intervening because Derek has seniority and challenging him means conflict and it's easier to look away. The door closes behind them with a sound that feels too final, and Caleb and Zuri Thornwell's nightmare is just beginning. The screening room is small and windowless, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead with that sound that gets inside your head and stays there, 2 metal chairs bolted to the floor facing a scratch table, walls painted institutional beige that's supposed to be calming but just feels suffocating. Derek points at the chairs, orders them to sit, closes the door with a metallic click that sounds like a cell locking. We need to question you about intent and associations. Derek stands over them using his height as a weapon. Who gave you the weapon and what were you planning to do with it on the aircraft? Caleb sits up straight, tries to maintain the dignity his parents taught him even though his hands are shaking. My grandfather gave it to me. His name is Colonel James Thornwell. He's a retired Marine who served 3 tours in Iraq. It was a birthday present. He carries one himself and wanted me to have one too. A likely story. Derek crosses his arms. Military personnel don't give weapons to children. That violates every protocol they're trained on. Who really gave it to you? He's telling the truth. Zuri's voice is small but fierce. Papa gave it to Caleb at his birthday party in August. There were 20 people there. Our whole family saw it. He even showed us how each tool works, even though we probably won't ever use them. Linda leans against the wall, her expression suggesting she's heard 1,000 lies, and this is just another one. Don't interrupt when adults are talking. You'll get your turn to explain yourself. Derek leans down close to Caleb, invading his space, his breath smelling like coffee and authority. What were you planning to do with this weapon on the plane? Were you going to threaten crew members? Hijack the aircraft? What was the plan? There was no plan. Caleb's voice rises with frustration and fear mixing together. We didn't even remember it was in there. It's been clipped to my backpack for months. I didn't think about it because it's legal and it's just a keychain. So you admit you've been carrying a concealed weapon for months? Derek straightens up looking satisfied. That's premeditation. That's conscious decision-making. That means this wasn't an accident. That's not what I said. Caleb feels the trap closing around him. I said it's been there because my grandfather gave it to me and I liked having it, not because I was planning anything. 20 minutes pass like this, the same questions in different forms. Derek and Linda tag teaming, one asking while the other watches for inconsistencies, treating two children like terrorist suspects, ignoring their tears, dismissing their explanations, building a narrative that has nothing to do with reality. Can we please call our parents? Caleb asks for the 5th time. Our dad needs to know where we are. Our mom is waiting for us in Washington. They're going to be worried when we don't check in. Your parents can't help you right now. Derek's voice is flat, final. You're in my jurisdiction and you'll remain here until I'm satisfied you're not a security threat. Through the small window in the door, Caleb can see other passengers moving freely through security, a white family with actual camping knives in their luggage getting them confiscated with polite smiles and no drama. Sorry folks, but these exceed the size limit. You can check them or we can dispose of them, your choice. The parents laugh, say they forgot those were in there. The TSA agent laughs too. No problem happens all the time. Have a great flight. No interrogation, no separate room, no 20-minute detention, just normal human interaction between people who see each other as equally deserving of dignity. Zuri watches the same scene, feels the injustice of it burning in her chest alongside the fear. Why are they treating us like this? We showed them everything, we told them the truth. Why won't they let us go? Because they can, Caleb whispers back. Because we're black and they decided we're dangerous before we even opened our mouths. Derek's radio crackles, a voice asking about the delay, checkpoint backing up, passengers complaining about long wait times. Derek keys the mic, tells them he has a potential security threat, 2 juveniles with weapons and fake documentation, situation requires extended screening. Caleb gathers his courage, remembers his father's lessons about knowing your rights and standing firm even when you're scared. Officer Paulson, I know our rights under TSA regulations. We're entitled to supervisor review of any detention lasting more than 15 minutes. I'm formally requesting a supervisor to review this situation. Derek's face darkens like storm clouds gathering, his jaw clenches, his hands ball into fists at his sides. You're requesting? You don't request anything, you comply with security protocols and you answer questions until I'm satisfied. We have complied. Caleb's voice shakes but he pushes through. We showed you our documents, we explained about the keychain, we've answered every question you asked. You're violating our civil rights by detaining us without reasonable cause. Zuri finds her own courage, her mother's voice in her head talking about the 4th Amendment and illegal searches and the rights that people died to protect. My mom is a constitutional law professor at Georgetown. She taught us about unreasonable search and seizure. You can't hold us like this without specific articulable facts of criminal activity. Oh, so now you're lawyers? Linda's laugh is harsh and mocking. Talking about amendments and constitutional law. That's cute, real cute. Derek leans down until his face is inches from Caleb's, his voice dropping to something dangerous. Let me tell you something, boy. I've been doing this job since before you were born. I know threats when I see them, and you too with your summit invitations and your rights and your constitutional law professor mother. You're exactly the type who think rules don't apply to you. The rules should apply equally, Caleb says quietly. That's all we're asking for, the same treatment everyone else gets. Your father can't help you now, Derek straightens up. You're in my jurisdiction and you'll stay here until I say otherwise. Caleb makes a decision, reaches slowly for his phone in his pocket, his movements deliberate and visible so nobody can claim he's being threatening. I'm calling my dad, you can watch me do it, you can't legally prevent me from contacting my guardian. Derek's hand slams down on the table with a bang that makes both children jump. What are you doing? Put your hands where I can see them right now. I'm getting my phone to call my father. Caleb's hand is still in his pocket. You can see exactly what I'm doing, there's nothing threatening about it. Put your hands up. Derek's voice rises to a shout. You're being non-compliant, you're reaching for something without permission, hands up now. Caleb freezes, pulls his hands slowly out of his pocket, raises both hands in the air like he's surrendering to armed police. His phone is visible in his right hand, clearly just a phone, no weapon, no threat, just a 13-year-old trying to call his father. If you've ever wondered what happens when authority goes unchecked, when racism hides behind security protocols, when children's rights mean nothing against an officer's ego, keep watching. If you think this kind of abuse only happens in movies, you need to see what happens in the next 60 seconds. Hit that subscribe button if you believe no child should be treated like a terrorist for carrying a keychain. Smash that like if civil rights still matter, because what Derek Paulson does next will shock you into understanding why we can never stop fighting injustice. Derek grabs his radio, his adrenaline pumping, his sense of control slipping, his need to dominate these children overriding every shred of common sense. I need backup immediately, room 3. 2 juveniles resisting security protocols, possible escalation to physical threat, send everyone available. And in that moment 3 additional TSA officers start running toward the screening room, and Caleb and Zuri's nightmare is about to become a scene that will be replayed on news channels worldwide. 3 TSA officers rush into the small screening room, officers Brad Kowalski, Marcus Chin, and supervisor on duty Janet Reeves, all of them responding to Derek's emergency call like this is an active threat situation, like 2 children sitting in chairs with their hands raised constitute danger that requires overwhelming force. Derek is agitated, breathing hard, pointing at Caleb like he's identifying a suspect in a lineup. These 2 have been non-compliant from the start. The male suspect reached for something in his pocket, possible weapon. I called for backup because the situation was escalating toward violence. Caleb's hands are still in the air, his phone visible in his right hand, his voice shaking but trying to stay calm. I was reaching for my phone to call my father, that's all, just my phone, you can see it right there. Janet Reeves, the supervisor, looks uncertain, glances between Derek and the children, seems to sense something is wrong here. Derek, maybe we should just let them make their call, talk to their parents, sort this out calmly. Derek cuts her off, his voice sharp with authority he's wielded for 19 years without challenge. Janet, I've got this under control. These kids are a security risk and I'm handling it according to protocol. Caleb tries one more time, desperation creeping into his voice. Please just let us call our dad. His name is Dr. Marcus Thornwell. He's the director of the Federal Aviation Administration. He can verify everything we're telling you. I don't care who your daddy is. Derek's face flushes red with anger at being challenged. In this checkpoint, I'm the authority, not your father, not anyone else, me. Caleb looks at his sister who's crying silently in her chair, looks at the officers blocking the door, looks at his phone still in his hand, makes a choice that any reasonable person would make. He tries one more time to reach his father because his father is the person who can fix this, who can make these adults see reason. He moves slowly, deliberately, lowering his right hand toward his lap to dial the phone, every movement visible, no sudden motions, no threatening gestures, just a child trying to call for help. Derek sees the movement and something inside him snaps completely. He's reaching for something, weapon. The word weapon triggers a response in all 4 officers that's been drilled into them through training and reinforced through culture. They react without thinking, without assessing, without seeing that it's clearly just a phone in a child's hand. All 4 officers tackle both children simultaneously with brutal excessive force that has nothing to do with actual threat and everything to do with asserting dominance. Caleb is slammed face first into the tile floor, the impact so violent his nose cracks audibly, the sound of cartilage breaking echoing in the small room, blood immediately gushing across the white tiles. Zuri screams, a sound of pure terror, tries to reach for her brother because that's her twin, her other half, and he's bleeding and she needs to help him. Linda Mosley grabs Zuri by the shoulders, throws her against the concrete wall with enough force that her head impacts with a sickening thud. Zuri collapses, her small body crumpling to the floor, blood pooling from a gash on her forehead where the skin split on impact, her eyes unfocused, dazed, barely conscious. Officers pile on Caleb, a knee in his back pressing his face into the floor and his own blood, his arm wrenched behind him at an angle that makes him scream with pain. "Stop, you're hurting me, Zuri, where are you?" Zuri tries to answer but the words won't come, her vision blurry, blood covering her face, the metallic taste of it in her mouth. "Caleb," her voice barely a whisper. "Caleb, I'm scared." Brad Kowalski pulls out handcuffs, adult-sized metal handcuffs designed for grown criminals, clamps them around Caleb's thin 13-year-old wrists, the metal biting into his skin, clicking shut with finality. Linda does the same to Zuri, handcuffing an 11-year-old girl who's bleeding from a head wound and possibly concussing, who's never been in trouble in her life, who 3 hours ago was eating pancakes shaped like the Capitol building and dreaming about her acceptance speech. Derek stands over them breathing hard, adrenaline pumping through his system, feeling victorious, feeling like he just stopped a major security threat. Suspects secured, juveniles subdued for assaulting TSA officers and resisting lawful commands. Janet Reeves looks at the scene with horror finally breaking through her institutional loyalty, 2 children on the floor bleeding and handcuffed, and finds her voice. "Derek, they're children, they're bleeding, this is excessive force, we need paramedics." They resisted, Derek's voice is defensive now, justifying. "We followed protocol for non-compliant passengers who pose a physical threat." "What threat?" Janet gestures at Caleb's phone lying on the floor covered in blood. "That's a phone, that's all it ever was, a child's phone. And you broke his nose for trying to call his father." The security cameras mounted in the corners of the room capture everything, every angle, every moment of violence, every drop of blood, every scream, footage that's being recorded and stored and monitored in real time by the TSA Security Operations Center where shift supervisors watch all checkpoint activities. If you've ever wondered how far racism can go when it's given a badge and authority, if you've ever questioned whether police brutality extends to children, if you think the civil rights movement solved these problems, you need to see what happens next. 2 children are bleeding on the floor, handcuffed like criminals, their only crime being black in an airport. Subscribe if you believe this should never happen to anyone's children, like this video if accountability matters to you, because what's about to unfold will restore your faith that sometimes power protects the powerless instead of crushing them. Derek doesn't know that in the TSA Security Operations Center a supervisor named Kevin Martinez is watching these monitors, reading the incident report that's automatically generating, seeing the names Caleb Thornwell and Zuri Thornwell, seeing the emergency contact information that lists Dr. Marcus Thornwell, Director of the Federal Aviation Administration. Kevin's face goes pale, his hands start shaking as he reaches for the phone to call the Miami airport director, his voice urgent and terrified. "We have a code red situation. We have a federal emergency. TSA officers just assaulted the FAA Director's children." The call triggers a chain reaction that moves faster than Derek Paulson can comprehend, the airport director calling the TSA regional director, the regional director calling the TSA administrator, everyone in the chain of command suddenly understanding that the worst possible scenario just unfolded at checkpoint 3. Meanwhile, in the screening room, paramedics arrive, rushing in with medical bags and gurneys, kneeling beside 2 bleeding children who are still handcuffed, one with a clearly broken nose, the other with a head wound that's already swelling into a dangerous lump. "We need to remove these handcuffs," the lead paramedic says firmly. "These kids need medical attention immediately. They're suspects in custody," Derek protests. "We can't remove restraints until we complete processing. They're children with serious injuries." The paramedic's voice hardens. "Remove the handcuffs now or I'm calling the police to report child abuse." Linda reluctantly unlocks the cuffs, the metal releasing with a click that sounds like freedom coming too late. Caleb immediately crawls to his sister, blood still streaming from his broken nose, pain radiating through his face. Zuri, can you hear me? Zuri's eyes focus slightly on her brother's face. It hurts, everything hurts, I want Mom. She's coming. Caleb lies because he doesn't know if that's true, but he needs his sister to have hope. Mom's coming and Dad's coming and they're going to fix this. Janet finally finds the documentation that Derek dismissed earlier, reads it properly for the first time, sees the emergency contact section with crystal clarity. Dr. Marcus Thornwell, Director Federal Aviation Administration, followed by a phone number with a Washington, D.C. area code. Her face drains of all color, her hands start shaking. She looks at Derek with dawning horror. Derek, do you know who these children's father is? Derek is still high on adrenaline, still convinced he did the right thing. I don't care who their father is, they were non-compliant. Their father is the director of the FAA. Janet's voice breaks. You just assaulted the children of the man who regulates every airport in America. And that's when every phone in the room starts ringing at once. The phones ring like alarm bells signaling the end of the world. Derek Paulson thought he controlled Janet's phone, Linda's phone, the wall phone in the screening room, all of them simultaneously demanding attention with the urgency of people who know catastrophe just happened and needs immediate containment. Janet answers hers first, her supervisor's voice tight with barely controlled panic. Do not let those officers leave the area. Federal investigators are en route. The FAA Director has been notified and he's on his way to Miami right now. Derek's phone buzzes with a text from the TSA Regional Director he's never heard from directly in 19 years. You are suspended effective immediately pending investigation into use of force incident involving minors. Remain at checkpoint for interview. The airport PA system crackles to life with an announcement that cuts through the terminal noise. Dr. Marcus Thornwell to Security Checkpoint 3 immediately. Dr. Marcus Thornwell to Security Checkpoint 3. Derek's face goes from defensive to terrified as the reality starts penetrating his adrenaline fog. He just assaulted children who happen to have the most powerful father in aviation, a father who can destroy careers and close airports and rewrite regulations with a phone call. The paramedics work quickly, one stabilizing Caleb's broken nose with gauze to stop the bleeding, the other examining Zuri's head wound with growing concern. She needs a CT scan, possible concussion, or worse. This kind of impact can cause traumatic brain injury. Zuri's eyes keep drifting closed. The paramedic gently taps her cheek. Hey, sweetheart, stay with me. Keep your eyes open. Can you tell me your name? Zuri, her voice is slurred. Zuri Thornwell, I'm 11. I want my dad. Your dad is coming, honey, the paramedic says gently while shooting a furious look at Derek. He's coming right now. Marcus Thornwell had been in Washington, D.C. when his executive assistant burst into his office with news alerts showing incident at Miami Airport involving juveniles named Thornwell. He didn't wait for confirmation, just chartered an emergency flight, called in every favor he had to get clearance for immediate departure, arrived at Miami 40 minutes ago already knowing his children were hurt but not knowing how badly. He runs through the terminal, his FAA Director credentials getting him past every checkpoint without question, TSA administrator on his phone giving him updates that make his blood turn cold. Your children were detained for 35 minutes, questioned without legal representation, then forcibly restrained when your son attempted to call you. Both sustained injuries. Paramedics are on scene. How badly injured? Marcus's voice is steady but his hands shake. Broken nose for your son, head trauma for your daughter. They're conscious but they need hospital transport. Marcus reaches checkpoint 3. Pushes past security barriers, sees the screening room door open and rushes inside. The scene that greets him will live in his nightmares forever. Caleb sitting on the floor with blood-soaked gauze pressed to his face, Zuri on a stretcher with a paramedic holding pressure on a head wound, both of his children's faces swollen and tear-streaked and terrified. Daddy! Zuri's cry is heartbreaking. She tries to sit up but the paramedic gently restrains her. Marcus drops to his knees beside the stretcher, his hands hovering over Zuri's face, afraid to touch her and cause more pain. Baby, I'm here. Daddy's here now, you're safe. They wouldn't let us call you. Caleb's voice is thick from his broken nose and tears. We tried to tell them who you were but they didn't believe us. They said you couldn't help us. Marcus looks at his son's face, the bruising already forming under his eyes, the swelling around his nose, the blood on his shirt. then back to Zuri's head wound that's still seeping despite pressure. His children came to this airport excited about a leadership summit, about Zuri's speech, about growing up and traveling independently, and they're leaving on stretchers because TSA officers decided they looked like threats. Which one of you did this? Marcus stands slowly, turns to face the officers clustered near the door, his voice quiet but carrying the weight of federal authority. Which one of you put your hands on my children? Derek tries to salvage something, his voice shaking. Sir, Director Thornwell, this was a misunderstanding. They were non-compliant with security screening. We had to use necessary force to maintain checkpoint safety. Necessary force. Marcus repeats the words like he's tasting poison. Show me the weapon that justified breaking my son's nose and giving my daughter a concussion. Janet hands him the evidence bag containing the 2-inch multi-tool keychain, her hands trembling. Marcus examines it, his jaw clenching tighter with each second. This is 2 inches long, TSA-compliant, legal to carry. Where exactly is the weapon that required you to brutalize children? The silence stretches. Nobody has an answer because there is no answer that makes this okay. They had a weapon, Linda tries weakly. We couldn't verify their documentation. They matched a profile for suspicious travelers. What profile? Marcus's voice drops to something dangerous. Describe this profile that made 2 honor students with official government invitations look like terrorists. More silence, the kind that admits guilt without words. You profiled my children because they're black. Marcus states it as fact, not question. You saw 2 black kids with nice backpacks and official documents and you decided they must be criminals. You detained them, you terrorized them, you ignored their requests for legal representation, and when my 13-year-old son tried to call his father, you broke his face. We thought he was reaching for a weapon. Derek's voice is desperate now. He moved suddenly and we had to respond to the perceived threat. He was holding a phone. Marcus gestures to Caleb's phone still on the floor in a puddle of blood. That's a phone, it was always a phone. You saw a phone and decided it was a weapon because you needed to justify the violence you wanted to commit. He pulls out his own phone, dials a number that connects immediately. Mr. President, this is Marcus Thornwell. I need to invoke emergency authority under Section 44709 of the Federal Aviation Act. TSA officers at Miami International just brutally assaulted my children. I'm requesting immediate suspension of security operations at this facility pending federal investigation. The pause lasts 3 seconds while the President of the United States processes this information. Yes, sir, I understand the consequences. Shut it down. Marcus hangs up, makes another call. Administrator Chen, this is Marcus. Under my authority as FAA Director, I'm grounding all commercial operations at Miami International Airport effective immediately until this security breach is investigated. No flights depart until I personally review every protocol and every officer. The TSA administrator's voice comes through speaker. Marcus, that will ground 300 flights, strand 50,000 passengers, cost hundreds of millions. I don't care if it strands 1 million people. Marcus watches paramedics preparing his children for transport. My children were beaten by your officers. This airport security clearance is suspended until I'm satisfied they can operate without brutalizing children. Within 3 minutes, every departure board at Miami International flashes red. The PA system announces that all operations are temporarily suspended under federal emergency order. Chaos erupts throughout the terminal as thousands of travelers realize their flights just got canceled. Derek watches the screens in horror, understanding finally that he didn't just assault 2 children, he assaulted the wrong children, children whose father has the power to shut down airports with a phone call. You cost my children their sense of safety. Marcus's voice is ice. Their blood is on this floor. You're done, all of you are done. Marcus kneels beside Caleb and Zuri one more time before they're transported to the hospital, his hand gentle on Caleb's shoulder, his other hand carefully avoiding Zuri's head wound as he strokes her hair. I'm going to make sure this never happens to anyone else's children. I promise you both, what these people did to you will cost them everything. Daddy, come with us. Zuri's voice is small and scared. Don't leave us again. I'll be right behind you, baby. Marcus kisses her forehead carefully. I need to handle something here first, and then I'm coming straight to the hospital. Mom is already on her way from DC. We're both going to be with you. The paramedics wheel the stretchers out. Caleb and Zuri disappearing toward the ambulances, leaving Marcus standing in a screening room with blood on the floor and officers who are beginning to understand the magnitude of their mistake. He pulls out his phone again. This call goes to the General Counsel of SkyWest Airlines, the carrier his children were supposed to fly on, the company whose contracted security team just destroyed 2 young lives. This is FAA Director Thornwell. I'm issuing Emergency Order 2024-12. SkyWest Airlines operating certificate is suspended effective immediately pending investigation into security contractor oversight failures and passenger safety violations. The lawyer on the other end stutters. Director Thornwell suspending our operating certificate will ground our entire fleet. That's over 500 aircraft. We carry 150,000 passengers per day. The economic impact will be catastrophic. Your contracted security team nearly killed my children. Marcus's voice is steel. You failed in your oversight responsibilities. You allowed TSA officers under your operational umbrella to brutalize minors. You're grounded until I'm satisfied you can operate safely. Sir, we don't directly control TSA officers. That's a federal agency. We just contract with them for checkpoint services. You contract with them, which makes you responsible for ensuring they meet safety standards. You failed that responsibility. Your certificate is suspended. This conversation is over. He hangs up before the lawyer can protest further. Within 10 minutes the order hits SkyWest's Operations Center. Emergency protocols activate. Pilots are notified mid-flight that their airline just lost its operating authority. Planes already in the air will complete their journeys, but nothing else takes off. The entire nationwide network of SkyWest flights grinds to a halt. Not just Miami, every SkyWest departure gate in America, Los Angeles and Denver and Chicago and Phoenix, hundreds of aircraft sitting at gates with passengers already boarded, announcements that flights are canceled due to federal emergency order, confusion and anger rippling through airports coast to coast. The stock market reacts within minutes. SkyWest trading halted as the price plummets 40% on news that the FAA Director suspended their operating certificate, billions of dollars in market value evaporating, executives scrambling to understand what happened and how to fix it. Derek Paulson watches terminal televisions showing breaking news. FAA Director grounds major airline after children assaulted at security checkpoint, his face filling the screen in his TSA uniform from the employee directory photo, his name and 19 years of service listed like an accusation. Oh my God, Derek's voice breaks. What have I done? This is going to destroy thousands of jobs, strand hundreds of thousands of passengers. I didn't mean for this to happen. You meant to hurt my children. Marcus turns to face him. You looked at 2 scared kids and decided they deserved violence. The consequences spreading from that decision are yours to carry. Every canceled flight, every stranded passenger, every dollar lost. That's on you. FBI agents arrive, 3 of them in dark suits with credentials identifying them as federal civil rights investigators. Dr. Thornwell, we need to take statements from everyone involved. We'll also need access to security footage and any written documentation. Marcus nods. I want federal charges under Title 18 Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. I want maximum penalties pursued. These officers used their authority to violate my children's civil rights and then brutalize them when they asked for help. We'll pursue every applicable charge, sir, the lead agent assures him. We've already reviewed the security footage. It's damning, shows the entire incident from multiple angles. I want that footage preserved, Marcus says. I want it released to the media. I want every American to see what happened to my children so they understand why I shut down this airport and grounded that airline. The agent hesitates. Sir, releasing footage of minors being assaulted might traumatize them further. My children are already traumatized. Marcus's voice is firm. Hiding what happened protects the system that enabled it. Showing what happened forces accountability. Release the footage. The Miami airport director approaches carefully, his face pale with the understanding that his facility just became ground zero for a national incident. Director Thornwell, we're implementing immediate protocol reviews. All TSA supervisors are being interviewed. We're cooperating fully with federal investigators. You're under investigation too. Marcus doesn't soften his tone. Your facility allowed this to happen. Your oversight failed. Your checkpoint procedures enabled racial profiling. You're complicit until proven otherwise. Yes, sir. The airport director retreats, knowing his career hangs by a thread. Marcus makes one more call, this time to the TSA administrator directly. I want every officer involved arrested and charged. I want Derek Paulson's employment history reviewed for patterns of abuse. I want his complaint record made public, and I want a nationwide audit of TSA use of force incidents disaggregated by race. The administrator sounds exhausted. Marcus, we're already moving on all of that. Derek Paulson is suspended, his partners are suspended, we're reviewing 19 years of his service record. Not good enough, Marcus says. I want terminations, not suspensions. I want criminal referrals, not internal discipline. I want accountability that sends a message to every TSA officer in America that children are not enemy combatants. You'll have it, the administrator promises. We're with you on this completely. Marcus hangs up, looks around the screening room one more time, at the blood still on the floor, at Derek and Linda and Brad and Marcus Chin all standing against the wall under FBI supervision, at Janet who failed to stop it, at the wreckage of what should have been a simple security screening. My children came here excited about a leadership summit, Marcus says to everyone in the room. They packed carefully, they studied their schedules. My daughter practiced her speech about justice and dignity in America. They trusted that this system would treat them fairly. He pauses, his voice breaking slightly. Instead, you taught them that being black means being suspected, that having rights means nothing against officers who've decided you're guilty, that calling for help gets you beaten. Derek tries to speak. Sir, I'm sorry, I truly am. I made a terrible mistake. You made a choice, Marcus corrects him. Mistakes are accidental. What you did was intentional. You saw black children and decided they were threats. You had 35 minutes to reconsider and you doubled down every time. You don't get to call that a mistake. Marcus leaves the screening room and drives directly to Jackson Memorial Hospital where his children were transported, his hands gripping the steering wheel tight enough to hurt, his mind replaying the image of Caleb's broken bloody face and Zuri's unfocused eyes, rage and grief warring inside him. He arrives at the emergency department, identifies himself to the triage nurse who immediately escorts him to the treatment area where Caleb and Zuri are being examined. Professor Simone Thornwell is already there. She flew in on the first available flight from DC, still wearing her teaching clothes, mascara streaked from crying. She sees Marcus and collapses into his arms, her composure finally breaking completely. They hurt our babies, her voice muffled against his shoulder. Someone put their hands on our children and hurt them. I know, Marcus holds her tight. I know, and they're going to pay for it. Every single person involved is going to pay. Caleb is in the first bay, a doctor examining his nose while a nurse cleans the blood from his face. The break is clean but displaced. You're going to need it reset under sedation, probably some packing to control bleeding. You'll have bruising for a couple weeks. Will it heal right? Caleb's voice is thick and nasal. I have debate tournaments coming up. I need to be able to breathe properly. It should heal fine with proper treatment, the doctor assures him. You're young, bones heal well at your age. Marcus steps to Caleb's bedside, takes his son's hand carefully. I'm so sorry this happened to you. I'm so sorry I wasn't there to protect you. It's not your fault, Dad. Caleb squeezes his father's hand. We did everything right like you taught us. We were polite, we explained, we asked for a supervisor. None of it mattered because they'd already decided we were guilty. In the next bay, Zuri is getting a CT scan. Simone stands nearby, refusing to leave even though the technician asked her to step out. That's my daughter. Simone's voice brooks no argument. I'm staying where I can see her. The scan shows a mild concussion, no skull fracture but significant soft tissue swelling, the doctor explains. She'll need to be monitored closely for the next 24 hours. No screens, limited stimulation. Wake her every 2 hours tonight to check responsiveness. She was supposed to give a speech tomorrow, Simone says quietly. Her acceptance speech at the National Youth Leadership Summit. She worked on it for weeks, practiced it every night. I'm sorry, but she won't be giving any speeches for at least a week. The doctor is gentle but firm. Concussion protocol requires rest, cognitive and physical. Speaking in front of an audience would be too taxing. Zuri starts crying when she hears this, tears sliding down her face onto the sterile hospital pillow. I wanted to give my speech. I wanted to talk about justice and dignity. Now I can't even do that. Simone strokes her daughter's hair. careful to avoid the stitched wound. Baby, you'll give your speech when you're healed. The summit organizers will understand. But it won't be the same, Zuri's voice breaks. I was supposed to open the summit, I was supposed to set the tone, now someone else will do it and I'll just be the girl who got hurt. You're not just the girl who got hurt, Marcus says from the doorway. You're the girl who survived, who stood up for her rights even when adults with badges told her she had none, who's going to heal and come back stronger. The security footage starts circulating within hours despite attempts to control its release. Someone in the TSA Operations Center leaked it to media, 42 million views in the first 6 hours. America watches two well-dressed black children being interrogated, crying, begging to call their parents, then being violently tackled and beaten by 4 grown officers. The outrage is immediate and widespread. Protests organize at airports nationwide. Travelers wearing shirts that say justice for the Thornwell twins, TSA checkpoints disrupted by people demanding accountability, the hashtag trending globally. Derek Paulson's face becomes the symbol of everything wrong with security theater and racial profiling, his photo shared millions of times, people digging into his history, finding complaints he thought were buried, passengers coming forward with their own stories of his aggression and bias. A white woman posts about how Derek confiscated her nail clippers with a smile and a joke about safety, contrasted with how he brutalized children over a legal keychain, the disparity stark and undeniable. A black businessman shares video from 2 years ago of Derek detaining him for random screening that lasted an hour, asking invasive questions about his income and travel plans, treating him like a criminal until his white colleague vouched for him. The pattern emerges clearly, 19 years of Derek Paulson using his badge to terrorize people of color while treating white passengers with courtesy, 19 years of complaints dismissed as misunderstandings or oversensitivity, 19 years of a system protecting someone who should have been fired after year 1. Linda Mosley's history surfaces too, 12 years of similar complaints, passengers of color detained at higher rates when she's on duty, use of force incidents disproportionately against minorities, the data showing what anyone paying attention already knew. By nightfall, Derek and Linda and Brad and Marcus Chen are all arrested. Perp walked out of the airport in handcuffs while news cameras record, charged federally with deprivation of rights under color of law, assault and battery on minors, child endangerment, filing false reports. Janet Reeves is suspended without pay pending investigation into her failure to intervene, her supervisor credentials revoked, her career effectively over even if criminal charges don't stick. The SkyWest Airlines stock continues to crater, dropping 60% by market close. The CEO holds an emergency press conference trying to distance the company from the incident, but investors aren't buying it. Class action lawsuits already being filed by shareholders claiming negligent oversight. Marcus watches the news from Zuri's hospital room, his daughter finally sleeping after being given mild sedation to help with the pain and anxiety, Caleb in the next room with Simone, both parents taking shifts so their children are never alone. His phone rings constantly, the president calling to express support and promise full federal resources, senators calling to demand hearings, civil rights organizations calling to offer legal assistance, but Marcus ignores most of it, his focus on his children who trusted the system and got betrayed. A nurse brings him coffee, recognizes him from the news. My son is 14, she says quietly. Seeing what happened to your kids, knowing it could happen to mine, it's terrifying. It should be terrifying, Marcus says. Because it can happen, it does happen, it happened to my children and they had every advantage. Imagine how much worse it is for kids whose parents don't have power. What are you going to do? The nurse asks. Everything I can. Marcus looks at his sleeping daughter. I'm going to use every bit of authority I have to make sure no parent ever has to see their child like this again. And Derek Paulson in his holding cell waiting for arraignment has no idea that Marcus Thornwell is just getting started, that the airport shutdown and airline grounding were just opening moves, that the real reckoning is still coming. 11 months pass between the assault and Derek Paulson's federal trial, 11 months of pretrial hearings and motions and legal maneuvering, 11 months of Derek's lawyers trying to get the security footage excluded or the charges reduced or the trial moved to a more sympathetic venue, 11 months of every attempt failing because the evidence is too clear and the crime too obvious. The trial itself lasts 6 days. The prosecution presents the security camera footage from 4 different angles showing everything: Derek ordering the children to the screening room, the interrogation, Caleb slowly reaching for his phone, Derek shouting weapon and tackling a child whose hands were clearly visible and clearly empty. Expert witnesses testify that nothing in Caleb's movements suggested threat, that trained officers should be able to distinguish between a phone and a weapon, that the force used was excessive and unreasonable, that departmental policies were violated at every step. The TSA's own training materials are entered into evidence, pages highlighting that officers should de-escalate situations involving minors, that parents or guardians must be contacted when children are detained, that use of force is a last resort, not a first response. Every regulation Derek ignored in favor of violence. Caleb testifies, 16 years old now, his nose healed but slightly crooked, a permanent reminder of that day. He describes the fear of being detained and questioned, the terror when Derek called for backup, the explosion of pain when his face hit the floor, the sound of his sister screaming, the helplessness of being handcuffed while bleeding. "Did you reach for a weapon?" the prosecutor asks. "No, sir. I reached for my phone to call my father like I'd been asking to do for 35 minutes. I moved slowly so nobody would think I was threatening. I kept my hands visible. I did everything I was supposed to do." Why do you think Officer Paulson reacted the way he did? Caleb looks directly at Derek sitting at the defense table. Because he saw a black boy and assumed I was dangerous. Because in his mind black children in airports are threats, not travelers. Because he had the power to hurt me and no one had ever made him face consequences before. The defense tries to paint Derek as a dedicated officer making split-second decisions in a high-stress environment, tries to suggest the children were uncooperative and created the situation, tries to imply that anyone would have made the same choices. The jury deliberates for 4 hours, returns with guilty verdicts on all counts: federal civil rights violations, assault and battery on minors, child endangerment, filing false reports to justify excessive force. Derek's face crumbles when the verdict is read, his wife in the gallery starts crying, his adult children who stopped visiting him months ago aren't present to see his conviction. Sentencing comes 2 months later, the judge reviews Derek's 19-year history, the 47 complaints filed against him with 43 involving passengers of color, the pattern of racial profiling that TSA supervisors ignored, the arrogance of a man who thought his badge made him untouchable. 8 years in federal prison. The judge's voice is firm. You were given authority to keep travelers safe and you weaponized it against children. You saw brown skin and decided it meant criminality. You had multiple opportunities to de-escalate and you chose violence every time. Society needs protection from officers like you. Derek is led away in shackles, his career over, his freedom gone. His legacy reduced to a cautionary tale about unchecked racism in uniform. Linda Mosley gets 6 years, Brad Kowalski and Marcus Chin get 3 years each for their participation. Janet Reeves escapes criminal conviction but loses her pension and any chance of working in security again. The civil lawsuit settles before trial, TSA and Miami Airport and SkyWest Airlines collectively paying $18.5 million to the Thornwell family, the largest civil rights settlement in TSA history. Marcus and Simone donate every dollar, splitting it between children's trauma recovery programs, civil rights legal defense funds, and organizations working to end racial profiling in law enforcement. We don't need the money, Simone tells reporters. We need systemic change, we need accountability, we need a world where other parents don't have to see what we saw. Congress passes the Emergency Aviation Security Reform Act 8 months after the assault, the bill nicknamed Thornwell's Law in honor of Caleb and Zuri, requiring body cameras for all TSA screening interactions with minors, creating independent oversight boards for complaints, mandating immediate parental notification for any detention exceeding 10 minutes, establishing zero tolerance for racial profiling with first offense termination. The law passes unanimously, representatives from both parties standing together to support children's rights and dignity in aviation security. Derek Paulson's mugshot displayed during floor speeches as an example of why reform is essential. Within 3 years, TSA complaints of racial profiling drop 67%, use of force incidents drop 81%, the data showing that accountability works when it's actually enforced. Caleb and Zuri Thornwell stand together at the Miami International Airport security checkpoint, 18 and 16 years old now, returning to the place where their childhood ended 5 years ago. They're here for the dedication ceremony, the unveiling of a memorial plaque that will remind every traveler passing through what happened here and why it must never happen again. The plaque reads, "In memory of the day we failed. In honor of Caleb and Zuri Thornwell, may we never fail again." Bronze letters on polished stone mounted near checkpoint 3 where their blood once stained the floor. Caleb is a freshman at Howard University studying criminal justice reform, his broken nose healed crooked despite the best medical care, a permanent visible reminder that some scars don't fade. He still has panic attacks in airports, still flinches when TSA officers approach, still carries the trauma in his body even though his mind knows he's safe now. Zuri is a junior in high school. She finally gave her speech about justice and dignity in America 2 years after the assault, delivered it at the rescheduled leadership summit with her parents in the front row, her words carrying weight they wouldn't have had before because now she speaks from experience, not theory. She became the youngest person ever to address the United Nations Human Rights Council last year, standing before diplomats and telling them about the day she was 11 years old and got beaten unconscious for being black in an airport, her speech broadcast globally, her scars both visible and invisible on display. The TSA checkpoint looks different now, officers wearing body cameras, new signs posted about passenger rights, a different culture that treats children like children regardless of their skin color. Caleb and Zuri watch a young black boy about 11 going through security, a TSA officer smiling at him, asking about his cool superhero backpack, treating him with the kindness they were denied. "That's what we fought for," Zuri says quietly. "So kids like him don't have to be scared." Their parents stand beside them, Marcus still serving as FAA Director in his second term, Simone now advising the Department of Justice on civil rights enforcement, both of them changed by what happened to their children, both using their positions to prevent other families from experiencing the same trauma. Derek Paulson was released from federal prison 6 months ago after serving 5 years of his 8-year sentence. He lives in a trailer park outside Orlando, works night shifts at a warehouse, his wife divorced him, his children won't speak to him, his pension gone, his reputation destroyed. He watches the news coverage of the memorial dedication from his small living room, sees Caleb and Zuri poised and powerful, sees the changes their suffering created, sees that his cruelty didn't break them but instead forged them into activists who changed an entire system. If you've ever witnessed injustice and stayed silent because intervening felt risky, if you've ever looked away when someone needed an ally, this story should haunt you. 2 children bled on an airport floor while passengers recorded but didn't help, while officers used badges as weapons, while a system protected abusers instead of victims. Hit that subscribe button if you believe silence makes you complicit. Smash that like if you think one person can make a difference. Drop a comment about a time you chose courage over comfort because those stories matter. They inspire others to intervene instead of just record. Caleb speaks at the dedication, his voice steady despite the memories flooding back. Officer Paulson looked at me and saw a threat, not a child. He decided my blackness made me dangerous and my rights made me expendable. He was wrong, but the wrongness cost us years of trauma and healing. Zuri continues where her brother pauses. "We're not here for revenge, we're here because power without accountability is tyranny, because badges don't make people infallible, because children deserve protection, not brutality. We're here so the next black child with a backpack doesn't bleed for existing." They unveil the plaque together, cameras flashing, officials applauding, travelers stopping to read the words and understand what happened in this space, what changed because 2 children refused to let their pain be meaningless. Marcus watches his children and feels pride mixed with grief, pride that they survived and thrived, grief that they had to, grief that his position couldn't protect them from racism, couldn't shield them from violence, couldn't prevent the scars they'll carry forever. But it created accountability, Simone whispers, reading his thoughts. "What happened to our babies was evil, but what came after was justice. Imperfect justice, but justice nonetheless." The Thornwell family walks through the checkpoint together, Caleb and Zuri holding hands like they did that day 5 years ago, passing through security that's different now because of them, safer now because they spoke up, more just now because they refused to stay silent. Derek Paulson turns off his television, looks at his reflection in the dark screen, Thinks about the children he hurt and the career he destroyed and the hatred that cost him everything. He's sorry now, but sorry doesn't undo trauma. Sorry doesn't erase scars. Sorry is just a word that comes too late to matter. The twins who bled are thriving, changing laws, inspiring movements, proving that victims don't have to stay broken, that pain can become purpose, that the powerless can become powerful through courage and persistence. And somewhere a young black child goes through airport security without fear, treated with dignity, protected by reforms born from another child's blood, living in a slightly more just world because Caleb and Zuri Thornwell survived and fought back. Power isn't about destroying people who hurt you, it's about building systems that protect people who come after you. Derek Paulson had a badge and 19 years of unchecked authority. Marcus Thornwell had federal power and a father's rage, but real power belonged to two children who bled, healed, and refused to let their suffering be forgotten.